not enough time for what you two did.
A judge lets 2 teenage killers have it as he sends them to prison for murdering their roommate. Plus, an Ohio man sentenced for murdering his former high school sweetheart on a graduation trip to Myrtle Beach.
Today, after 635 days, is finally the day that our family, our friends, and our community have prayed for. Today is the day justice will be served.
Hey, thanks for joining me. I'm Angenette Levy, and we're looking at 2 cases involving teens who've admitted to murdering people in their lives. The first is Blake Linkous. The 20-year-old's trial was supposed to start this week in Horry County, South Carolina, but instead, Linkous pleaded guilty to murdering Natalie Martin right before jury selection in his trial was supposed to begin. Natalie and Blake had started dating when they were sophomores. They were high school sweethearts, but they broke up before graduation after Blake shoved Natalie during an argument. Natalie had just graduated from Philo High School in Ohio in 2023. Despite the breakup, the two went on a graduation trip to Myrtle Beach with a group of friends. On June 6th, Blake strangled Natalie to death. He was upset that she was texting another boy. Judge Deidre Jefferson asked Linkous a series of questions before accepting his guilty plea.
Do you understand you're entitled to a jury trial?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that we have a panel ready and still ready, that the court can qualify and select a jury if it is your desire to go forward with a jury trial?
Yes, ma'am.
And knowing all of that, do you wish to waive your right to a jury trial?
No, ma'am.
Do you understand the question? Do you want a jury trial or do you not want a jury
I
trial?
do not want a jury trial.
Okay, so do you waive your right to a jury trial?
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any deals the court has not been told about?
No, ma'am.
Have you been satisfied with your attorney?
Yes, ma'am.
Has he done everything you've asked or expected?
Yes, ma'am.
Any complaints about the services?
No, ma'am.
Has anyone promised you anything to plead guilty?
No, ma'am.
Has anyone threatened or forced you?
No, ma'am.
Are you pleading guilty freely and voluntarily and of your own will?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you understood my questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you need to ask any questions?
No, ma'am.
Have you been truthful?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you have the right to appeal this guilty plea and sentence?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand you have to do that in writing within 10 days of today?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that if you cannot afford an attorney for that process, that one will be appointed to you at no cost?
Yes, ma'am.
I find there's a substantial factual basis for the plea that the defendant has entered the plea freely, voluntarily, knowingly, and intelligently, with the advice and assistance of counsel that he's indicated to the court is satisfied. And the court qualifies the plea. Anything further from the state?
Yes, Your Honor.
The solicitor in the case went over the timeline leading up to Natalie's murder. Blake and Natalie had broken up after Blake shoved her during an argument, as I mentioned earlier.
If we go back to May 5th, this happened June 6th, that happened May 5th, you hear the residual effects of this push incident that resulted in the breakup. And Mr. Linkous texts Ms. Martin and says, quote, "If you hate me so much, I just want you to try to find someone else so I can beat their ass and feel a lot better about it." That's a common theme you see about a jealousy, controlling situation and the run-up to this. In the course of Mr. Linkous' statement, he says he was mad at her because she was texting another boy down here in Myrtle Beach, and that's what gave rise to his anger, is what he said in the statement. So,
The solicitor said that Linkous had a jealous streak. He was controlling and insecure, and there were text messages found on Natalie's phone that raised many concerns.
Natalie, in response to some of these text messages, says to Blake, "Your texts are such BS. You wanted to come to a particular party because you thought it was going to be being around other guys, which is why you had to be a prick like always and call me up a bunch of names and sus and everything else." I don't know about it, though. I am honestly unbothered by your ignorance anymore because I have tried to help you and show you what is right and what is wrong and what is okay and what is not okay. And I have come to realize that it is impossible and you will always do you. Your actions are not okay at all, and it's annoying, but I'm over it, honestly. All I have to say is if you want a happy life, you need to fix your shit. But I'm done with it, and I can't help you anymore. I don't need your coolant or your base. I'll be just fine. Please do not bother me at all today. I do not want to talk to you at all. Please respect that. If you cannot, I will absolutely block you on everything. And if you get any of your friends to try to harass me, I will block them on everything as well. Please stop harassing Brooklyn, because it's annoying for her as well, and this is her boss, and she has to sit there while you treat me like that and be in the middle of it all. It's so embarrassing when you do that. And you can call my mom, but that just makes you look bigger than you actually are. I just want to let it alone. Please respect that. Now, that was 2 weeks before she was strangled to death by Mr. Lincoln. Natalie's
father, Jesse, addressed the court about the loss of his daughter.
We realize we're not going to see our little girl again. Right there on the side of the road. And that's that. And we go home, a week or two later, the judge slammed the gavel and he says, for the price of a used SUV, your daughter's murderer can go home for the next 635 days. 635 days, he's been living his life, running around, doing whatever he wants to do. I'm not here to argue about the policies and procedures and all proceedings in the state of South Carolina. I know that I'm in over my head over that. But, the reason he was granted bond by Judge Cooper is because he wasn't violent. I think my daughter would beg to differ of whether he was violent. 635 days. That's 2 Father's Days. That's 2 Thanksgivings. That's 2 Christmases. It's an Easter, and a particularly painful Mother's Day. 635 days of every day me waking up and deciding whether, is this the day that I don't care about the judicial system? Is this the day that I don't care about consequences anymore? Because it doesn't feel like anybody else does. 635 days of that is impacting your honor. It's impacting on your own mental health, your own state of mind, trying to go to work every day, trying to live your life, trying to be happy about simple things, while your daughter's murderer is eating his mother's food at home, laying his head on his pillow.
And then Natalie's best friend, Brooklyn Farrell, also spoke. She talked about the impact that Natalie had on her life.
You were inspiring, caring, goofy, outgoing, but more importantly, you were my best friend. You were the one to be there for me and walk alongside me through every footstep of life. I believe that is what I miss about you most, your presence. How on any day I could look over in the seat beside me and see your piercing blue eyes and breathtaking blonde hair, looking back at me and sharing a heartfelt laugh. I would do anything to hear your laugh one last time. Now the only thing that I have left of you is our memories of this necklace I wear, which holds the ashes of your once full of life body. No goodbye text, goodbye call, or goodbye hug. It's crazy how much my life has changed without you here. The loneliness that creeps beside me, echoing in a distance every day. How we went from talking and joking about making our own TV show to now my phone lighting up from messages of news broadcasters wanting to make a documentary of your murder.
Brooklyn Farrell asked Judge Jefferson to sentence Blake Linkous to life without parole.
But today, after 635 days, is finally the day that our family, our friends, and our community have prayed for. Today is the day justice will be served. Justice. Justice for you, your life, and everything you never got the chance to become. We love you. Throughout school, something Natalie and I did was write each other letters and pass them off to one another in the hallways. I still have every letter Natalie ever gave me. As I sat in an empty hotel room last night, tears flooding from my face, I timed approximately how long it would take me to read this to you today. In total, it took me about 3 3.5 minutes. In the 3.5 minutes it took me to read this to you, Your Honor, I wanted you to live, breathe, and feel just what 3.5 minutes in my life is like. The sniffles of noses that you hear, the tears that fall not only from my eyes, but from all of Natalie's supporters here today. And just the feeling of true, antagonizing pain and desperation. This is and has become who I am as a person. 3.5 minutes, around the same amount of time it took the defendant to manually strangle my best friend. 3.5 minutes, he had to change his mind just for a second and allow my best friend to live. 3.5 minutes, the amount of time Natalie had to sit there and hopelessly fight for her life.
Linkous's attorney then explained his client's decision to plead guilty.
I discussed at length, in great detail, the logistics of the trial, what it would look like, what it would mean to his family, what it would mean to Natalie's family. And after about 3 hours together, he looked at me and he said, I don't want to do this. Do what? I don't want to go to trial. I never want to go to trial. I was aware of his reluctance, but at that point, it became clear to me that any decision other than pleading guilty as charged would not be his decision. It would be a combination of other decisions. We talked at great length about what that means. He's maintained that position, quite frankly, from the very day I met him. He's been of that opinion. And he explains that to me in this way. He kills his best friend. There is no excuse for that. There's nothing he can do to remedy that, to restore that. The only thing he can do, and the only thing he's been prepared to do since the very beginning, was to take responsibility for it and accept the punishment.
Judge Jefferson read letters privately from Blake Linkous's family advocating for him before sentencing the 20-year-old to decades behind bars.
Not only was Ms. Martin's life lost, but in essence, Mr. Linkous's life, for all intents and purposes, was lost as well as just the sheer agony of this, of the victim's family, and now the aftermath that Mr. Linkous's family must also face in light of the fact that their child took the life of someone that they knew, and probably considered as well a part of their family based on the letters that were presented to the court. And under those circumstances, the minimum certainly would not be appropriate. However, I do think that the state has requested is more than appropriate under the circumstances, and certainly be sentenced to the State Department of Corrections for a period of 45 years. You'll get credit pursuant to 1340, which will be calculated by the Department of Corrections. Thank you very much.
So Blake Linkous will serve 45 years in prison. He'll be released when he's 65. Natalie Martin's family had just 18 years with the young woman they called an angel on earth. She loved to hunt, fish, and even wrangled snakes. She also worked with children at a child care provider. Now to a sentencing out of Michigan, where 2 teenagers are going to prison for murdering their roommate. Jacob Blain and Willow Reynolds pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, armed robbery, and other charges in the murder of Adam Reynolds. Adam Reynolds was a 44-year-old man who befriended these teens, Blain and Reynolds. The case is heinous. Jacob Blain and Willow Reynolds admitted to beating Adam Reynolds to death with a shovel because they didn't want to have a meeting about house rules. Then they stole his car. Judge Mark Lachana let the teens know that he was not happy with the plea agreement that their attorneys had reached with the prosecutor. The sentence, a minimum of 20 years in prison and a maximum of 100.
Okay, it's not enough time for what you two did. I don't honestly know if there is a number that's enough time for what you two did to this gentleman. Mr. Blain, look at me when I'm talking to you, sir. Okay, you spent the entire sentencing staring over there in this corner. When those three women were up here talking, you were looking over here in the corner. I know you apologize, but they deserve at least to be looked at in the eye for what you did. As I was saying, I don't think there is a number, quite frankly, that is high enough for the evil that you subjected this gentleman to. The scariest part of this is that nobody can see this coming. No felonies, 2 minor misdemeanors. Generally, this type of violence has some indicators. And neither one of you had the greatest childhood. Okay. I would say probably 90% of the people that come here for sentencing did not have the greatest situation growing up. But it doesn't result in what you two did. So quite frankly, I'm going to go home tonight and I'm going to not feel very good about this.
We'll hear more from Judge Lachana in just a bit, but before sentencing Blain and Reynolds, the judge heard from Adam Reynolds' family. And just to be clear, Adam Reynolds and Willow Reynolds, they are not related. Adam Reynolds' sister made a statement in court discussing her brother's devotion to his faith.
I'd like to address the court because I want to share with you what I knew about my brother, Adam Reynolds' character. I would also like to share how the crime that ended Adam's life impacted my family. Adam was a genuinely kind, generous, empathetic Christian man who loved his family immensely. About 10 years ago, he renewed his faith in God and Christianity. Adam was an active member of our family's church, and he attended services every Sunday. He was passionate about evangelism and would often tell me that he made his daily choices based on what he felt with conviction was the right and Christian thing to do. Adam believed in treating others with kindness, compassion, and generosity without judgment, and would frequently go out of his way to help people who had fallen in hard times. He wanted to be a mentor to others by showing them that kindness and generosity still exists, and there is hope for everyone, regardless of difficult times or past mistakes.
Reynolds' mother also spoke about the pain of losing her son.
He was a born navigator, learning new cities and their opportunities and potential. Gone is our family handyman and techie. He was able to search YouTube and fix anything. He taught me how to identify birds and navigate Google Maps. He was strong in the best physical shape of his life. Self-confident and handsome. Studying building codes and autism books for the future, we told each other, I love you, every day. A son is supposed to care and protect his mother in her old age. But now, I'm afraid to conduct business in the city, and I'm lost trying to navigate internet alternatives. My good memories of places, food, and hobbies that we shared made me sad and cry. So I avoid these things that used to make me happy. I'm trying not to allow other person's offenses to change who I am and how I perceive the world. This time I want to thank the collaboration of multi-law enforcement and judicial agencies.
Jacob Blain's attorney spoke on his behalf about his troubled youth.
Mr. Blain is one of those with some problems growing up. He never graduated high school. He kind of was one that's kind of slipping through the cracks. And it's not a position to blame the government or the schools or the family. It's kind of a combination of all to place him in a position where wrong things happen. Now, this is an extreme wrong thing. That's not lost on anyone. But I think, as it says, he shows remorse for what occurred. And so that's one of the things that we were working with when we discussed this with the court. He is in programs in the Jersey County Jail. As I mentioned, he's showing remorse. He's trying to get things so that when there is an outdate, that he will be a better part of society than he was as a young man.
Then Jacob Blain apologized.
I attended church one day, and I got told by the pastor, Paul, from the Rock Church, that the victim, who was unfortunately deceased, like the family was saying, he was a godly man. He wanted to help people and to bring people to Christ. Unfortunately, there is no excuse. This man did not deserve to have his life ended.
And Willow Reynolds followed his lead.
I would like to apologize to the family, and I understand that it was awful, and I take full responsibility for it. And I'm trying to make myself a better person.
But those apologies meant very little to Judge LaChanna.
I would say, first of all, that it sounds like we could all use Mr. Reynolds in our life to do all those things that his family described that he did, not only for himself, but for the people in his family, but people that he was trying to help out. And from reading this report, it seems like Mr. Blain and Ms. Reynolds were people like that Mr. Adam Reynolds took a chance on and took the opportunity to try to help out, and it resulted in his death. And that perhaps is the most tragic part of this story, is that the concept of putting yourself out there and helping people, it should result in good things coming your way and good things happening to you. It should never result in a violent death, which is how it resulted in this particular case. So, from that perspective, this is certainly not just a tragedy because Mr. Reynolds died as a result of violent death, but it's a tragedy because that idea that he seemed to live for, based upon what his family said here today, is in jeopardy. Because it's very easy to say, well, he should have been more guarded. He should have closed himself off to people. And that's not the lesson we want to teach people. That's not what we want to have happen. We want people like Mr. Reynolds to give a helping hand. But we never want that helping hand to be extended and then what happened to him occur again. It's very rare to have 19-year-old defendants stand in front of the court on homicide charges.
Judge LaChanna then spoke of the horrific death suffered by Adam Reynolds for no reason at all.
With no prior felonies and no misdemeanors or minimal misdemeanor involvement. It's an unusual set of circumstances with these age of these individuals, their lack of prior criminal history, and the extreme violent nature of these acts. That is just particularly concerning to the court. The extent of the violence that Mr. Reynolds was subjected to by stabbing multiple times, use of a garden implement, and then left for dead when they tried to steal his car and went to the McDonald's. And ultimately, when confronted by police, were taken to the hospital for treatment. So it's a very difficult case to decide the sentencing on.
It's absolutely unbelievable that Adam Reynolds was beaten and stabbed, and then Jacob Blain and Willow Reynolds stole his car to go to McDonald's.
So I'm going to fashion a sentence that is not appropriate and not adequate for the violence that was inflicted. But it is a result of a negotiation that obviously something has to be given up to obtain that result. And I think under these circumstances, while I am not happy and not comfortable with it, I'm going to follow the agreement that I made. I'm going to sentence them accordingly. But I'll note for the record that I hope when your minimum term at the Department of Correction is reached, that the parole folks take a long, careful, hard look at both of you to determine whether it is safe to release you back into society. Because I quite frankly do not know if that point in time will ever come. So the sentencing is as follows with regard to Mr. Blain. On count 1, murder in the 2nd degree, he's sentenced to a minimum term of 20 years, a maximum term of 100 years. He has credit for 291 days that he has served. On count 3, armed robbery, he's sentenced to a minimum term of 20 years, a maximum term of 100 years, credit for 291 days that he has served. And on count 4, unlawfully driving away with an automobile attempt, he's sentenced to 291 days, credit for 291 days. He's responsible financially for the crime victim's rights fee and state minimum cost 130 and 204. And he has a joint and several restitution obligations to crime victim services for $9,136.79. With regard to Ms. Reynolds, the sentence is as follows. On count 1, she's sentenced to a minimum term of 20 years, a maximum term of 100, credit for 291 days that she has served. On count 3, armed robbery, the minimum term is 20 years, the maximum is 100 years, credit for 291 days that she has served. Count 4, unlawfully driving away with an automobile attempt, she's sentenced to 291 days, credit for 291 days.
That's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Angenette Levy. I'll see you back here next time.